Pop quiz. What is the most serious security threat facing the United States today? Is it A, Al-Qaeda, B, nukes in Iran, or C, the Afghan government's inability to stop the spread of the Taliban? If you said none of the above, congratulations for paying extra attention to the news last week, but don't blame the people who didn't see the major shift in our national security priorities during the Stimulus Week 2009! It was a distracting week in which Obama took every opportunity to compare himself to Abraham Lincoln, endowing himself with the bipartisan magic wand to bridge the gap of a house divided. In fact, I'll go out on a limb and say that the stimulus package will be remembered as Obama's Patriot Act. That is, this administration's policy and philosophy embodied as legislation and shoved down the throats of Congress before they could even read it. But the stimulus package has more in common with the Patriot Act than the executive branch of government muscling the legislative branch. And that brings me to the answer to our little pop quiz. Last week, Barack Obama's new intelligence chief, Dennis Blair, told Congress that the #1 security threat facing the United States was the global economic crisis. It's the economy, stupid. Blair laid out the reasoning to Congress that social and geopolitical unrest that could arise from the economic crisis has now outpaced terrorism as the #1 threat to the United States. And since the economic crisis that is now spreading through the global economy like the Black Plague began in American markets, Blair postulated in his prepared remarks to Congress that there would be, quote, increased questioning of the U.S. stewardship of the global economy. Blair warned, quote, the longer it takes for a recovery to begin, the more likelihood of serious damage to U.S. strategic interests. Subtextual translation: get on board with the stimulus package now, or you're not patriotic. Does this playbook seem familiar? How else could the economic crisis rise to the level of #1 security risk? Last week I brought to your attention the outrageous theory of Russian academic Igor Panarin, who thinks that the economic crisis in the United States will give birth to a civil war. If the economic stimulus package fails to stop the bleeding, more and more United States citizens will ask the question, how is it that lobbyists were the only people who had their hands on the stimulus package as our coffers were emptied? And if you add up enough angry, idle hands asking such questions, and Obama's top intelligence officer, Dennis Blair, knows that this can become a security risk that could mirror the situation that happened in Argentina several years ago, where citizens frustrated with their politicians and their bankers took to the streets chanting, "Throw them all out." And while Barack Obama is clearly inviting comparisons of himself to Abraham Lincoln, one parallel he would certainly like to avoid is a civil war breaking out on his watch. So, will the stimulus package work? You tell me. Use the comment section below or submit your own video. Look in the video description for details. I'm Dennis Trainor, and this is the UpTake.